Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namah. Let us recite this verse. Vijnana sarthiryastu manah pragrahavan naraha sodvanah paramapnoti tadvishno paramam padam. Vijnana sarthiryastu, the one whose driver of the chariot possesses vijnana, viveka, discrimination. In the buddhi, the viveka takes place in buddhi or the intellect. Manah pragrahavan naraha, one who has the reins of the mind also under his control. So our mind, what we call mind in English, which is called antahkaranam in Sanskrit, is divided into two basic functions, buddhi and manaha. Buddhi, the intellectual faculty; manaha, we can say, the emotional faculty, the impulsive faculty or emotional faculty. Buddhi, the intellectual faculty, is a thinking faculty, that which discriminates, that which thinks, understands, knows, the knowing faculty. And the mind is the feeling faculty. So we can say that our impulses such as raga, dvesha, the attachment, aversions, they are all stored in the mind, in the manaha. So we have just twofold personality, buddhi and manaha. Often we find, or we hear the complaint, Swamiji, I understand everything, but I cannot put it into practice. More often people complain about others, look at him, he understands everything, we look at his behavior. That is because understanding is in the buddhi and behavior is in the mind, manaha. You say in the morning also that we basically live our life at the level of emotions. We are emotional beings and live our life at the level of emotions. Therefore, the quality of our life will depend upon the quality of our emotions or impulses. And we have to use this buddhi, the faculty of understanding, the faculty of discrimination, the intellect, to monitor and to educate this manaha or the emotional faculty. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Uddaret atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet. May you rescue your mind with your own mind, atma with atma, meaning may you rescue your mind with the buddhi. Atmanam na avasadayet. If you do not make a conscious effort to rescue the mind from the influence of the impulses of ragadveshas, then it is quite likely that the mind will, under this influence, will slowly and slowly deteriorate. For avasadhanam, the mind will deteriorate, become more impulsive, will be less and less under our control, and more unhappy. More the influence of the impulses such as ragadvesha, the kama, krodha, anger, etc., more unhappy we are, and more the mind is free from the impulses of anger, etc., we are more composed, we are happy. So this thing should become very clear to us, that happiness depends upon the state of the mind, not even state of the intellect. Happiness depends upon the state of the mind. The extent to which the mind enjoys calmness, tranquility, self-control, to that extent, the mind and therefore a person is happy. He can be a highly intellectual person. And when I am in my right mind, just as I am right now, I can talk in a very intelligent way, make reasonable arguments and very subtle things I can communicate to you. But when I come under the control of my impulses, I become as though a different person. When impulses, anger, etc. takes over me, then all my education of the intellect, all the culture that I have otherwise, none of that is available to me when the mind gets angry. It is anger that controls the mind. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti smritibhramshat buddhinasah, buddhinashat pranashyati. Lord Krishna describes in the second chapter of the Gita that process of declining or falling, patanam meaning falling, the deterioration. Kamat krodho vijayate, when there is kama or the impulse of desire, krodho vijayate, that desire turns into krodha or anger. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, when the mind is under the control of anger, that time moha, meaning that my viveka buddhi does not function, and moha means aviveka, I see wrong thing as right and right thing as wrong. In anger, a person may see one who is innocent as guilty, and sometimes an angry father may punish the child, the fellow has not done anything. But in anger, I see something, my mind becomes quite distorted, and what is the innocent person may appear to me to be guilty, and vice versa. Leads to a whole series of unfortunate events. So here it says Vijnana Sarthiryastu. Vijnana Sarthi. Sarthi means charioteer. So here we have the imagery of a chariot, as you said in the morning. And the most important entity in the chariot is the charioteer, the one who drives the chariot. The driver is the most important entity, just as in a car also. He has a steering wheel, he controls the movement of the car, the motion of the car. In the chariot also, the charioteer, the Sarthi, is the most important entity, not the one riding the chariot. The one who rides the chariot is the Atma, Jivatma. that you and I are the master of the chariot and we are riding the chariot. But we don't drive the chariot is driven by the intellect. And in case of a car, the steering wheel is of course under the control of the driver. Here the rein, R-E-I-N, rein is compressed. The rein also is a live entity, the mind also has its own mind. Meaning that the mind also is not necessarily under the control of the intellect. To intellect is a charioteer. The mind is the reins and the sense organs are horses. And sense objects are the paths along which the horses run. The horses have a natural affinity for grass, something that they love to eat. And therefore, even though a chariot may be running along a path, the horses see green grass on the side, likely that they may swerve the chariot and go towards the grass. Sometimes the charioteer may not be able to control these horses. It depends. If the horses are well trained, under the control of the charioteer, then he will be able to guide the chariot so that the horses do not come under the sway or control of those, the temptations. Horses are not well trained, then they will be controlled by the temptations. In our case, the organs of perception, such as the faculty of hearing, touch, taste, smell, sight. They are the 5 organs of perception, and they stand in the place of the horses in this chariot. And these sense organs have a natural affinity for their respective objects. The Kaṭha says, Paranchikhani Vyatuna Swayambhu. Swayambhu means Parameshwara, Ishvara, has made the sense organs Paranchi, extrovert. Tasmat Parangvanshati. Nantara, therefore, the sense organs and the mind always look out and not within. Imagine if the mind and sense organs were so designed that they could see Atma, would have no problem. But Bhagavan has given us a tremendous task and He has made the mind and sense organs looking out and left to us to completely turn them around and make them inward looking so that they can look at Atma and know the Atma. Meaning that the mind has the potential of knowing the self, provided the mind is directed towards the self. But the way the mind is made by Ishvara, or generally speaking, the mind which we are born, that mind is naturally extrovert, meaning that it is attracted towards the things of the world. There are many temptations in the mind which direct the mind towards the objects of pleasure. And not only objects of pleasure, but then generally that is one thing that the scriptures address, is only the objects of pleasure. But then we are not only disturbed by the objects of pleasure, we also have these emotional needs, and therefore the mind also goes where the emotions can be satisfied. With the intellectual need, therefore the mind goes where the intellectual need also can be satisfied. So we have need of sense pleasure, we have need of emotional gratification, need of intellectual gratification. If you observe our day-to-day life, you'll find how we are habitually led to certain activities. When time comes, I just switch on the TV and I watch my favorite serial. Because that time, it is the mind which has temptation for the serial. Now, the kind of pleasure that it gets from that serial. It in fact controls my activities. In the morning I open my newspaper and everything else has to wait. Sometimes late in the class also because reading an interesting article in the newspaper. That was not the case this afternoon, by the way, but sometimes that can happen. So there are inbuilt temptations within ourselves. And thus the mind, intellect are made with temptations. That is what Bhagavan has done. And therefore they have natural tendency or affinity for the objects of pleasure. Although the goal is to know Atma, see Atma. Tasmat parang vashati. Nantaratman, since they have been designed to be extrovert, therefore they always reach out and they do not see or they do not get directed towards the Atma. And that task is left to us. If we recognize the need of knowing the Atma in the first place, which also requires a great deal of, grace. Manushyatvam, mumukshutvam, mahapurush samshaya. Viditatmanandaji Swami says that these threefold are purely devanugrahayatukam, are the result of the grace of Ishvara. That we gain a human embodiment. Mukshutvam, that there is a desire for moksha or knowledge. Mahapurush samshaya, that we are fortunate to have the samshaya or the refuge of a Mahapurusha, of a great teacher. All of this is by grace of Ishvara. But basically what Ishvara has done is left to us the task of turning the mind around, which Kaṭha itself describes as comparable to turning the river to its own source. Imagine, the river has to be turned to its own source in the opposite direction. So when we pay attention to this, if we recognize that the happiness is in the self, it is not out there, and therefore for me to become happy and successful, it is important that my mind should become inward looking so that it can experience the joy or pleasure of art self. That's where the true happiness is. If this viveka or this discrimination arises in me, that also requires grace. That we get exposed to, in Puja Swamiji's words, even a paperback, or occasional hearing of some such talks, where our eyes open that, wait a minute, what am I doing in my life? Which direction is my mind running all the time, and what should I be doing to be really happy? No, but Swamiji, I am happy without listening to Vedanta. I am happy without coming to Gurukulam. All I need is some nice music, some nice TV show, some, going out, traveling, sightseeing. Makes me happy. But that happiness that we enjoy also, where does it come from? The happiness that we gain by watching a favorite television show, or listening to our favorite music, or any such activity, the happiness that we enjoy, where does it come from? Comes only from the self. Because what that music does to me makes my mind calm and inward looking. When a desire is satisfied, then the mind, which was propelled by desire, then the desire calms down, the mind becomes inward looking. That inward looking mind is able to enjoy the happiness of the self. Meaning that whenever we enjoy happiness, understand it always comes from the self. Because nowhere else there is happiness. Swami, you don't know. I know there is happiness in ice cream. Whenever I eat ice cream, I enjoy it. I am always happy. Is there a rule that every time you enjoy ice cream? Yes, Swami, we'll give one plate of ice cream, second plate of ice cream, third plate of ice cream, fourth plate of ice cream, fifth plate of ice cream. There is a law of diminishing return. That its capacity to make me happy keeps on diminishing. The time comes when the very source of happiness, which I thought to be a means of happiness, becomes a means of unhappiness. Keep on pushing more and more ice cream into me and it will all come out. Some of these experiences, if you analyze, would enable us to understand that happiness cannot be in any entity, any object. So all I need is to store my freezer with ice cream, store with chocolates and candies, etc., etc. But that doesn't work. Works up to a certain point. Happiness is the nature of self, and we can enjoy that happiness when the mind is inward looking. And therefore the right thing to do in the life is to constantly strive to make the mind inward looking. What is that drives the mind outward, away from me? The so-called raga and dveshas, attachment and aversion, they drive the mind away from me. When there is an attachment for something, then also the mind thinks of that object of attachment. And when there is an aversion for something, then also mind thinks of that, unfortunately. When I do not like something, mind wants to go there again and think of that. So attachment and aversion, both of them, have this ability to control my mind and distract the mind from the self to the non-self. Therefore, the only way that the mind can think of self is that the mind is made free from this raga-dveshas which drive the mind away from the self. Vijnana sarthiridastu. This basic viveka or this understanding we should have about the life. Basic understanding that we require in life is that the happiness has to come from my own self. And that requires a mind which is inward looking, which is able to see or experience the self. But Swami, what about the happiness I enjoy when I'm eating ice cream? But at that moment that ice cream makes my mind inward looking. That craving for the ice cream momentarily, calms down and mind becomes quiet, inward looking. Otherwise, even ice cream also cannot make me happy. Even a favorite movie also cannot make me happy. We're all friends going for a movie. On the way some discussion arose and somebody said something and then some bitter words were uttered and I was hurt. I reached the movie house all right, but my mind was just upset. There are many a time when I cannot enjoy my favorite thing because mind is upset. So not only do I require a favorite thing, but also require a mind which enjoys a certain composure. So this is basic viveka or discrimination required in life. That happiness always comes from the self, And that we require an inward-looking mind in order to enjoy that happiness. Therefore, our effort should not be for, surrounding ourselves with all kinds of objects of happiness which we think give us happiness. Our attempt should always be to make the mind inward-looking, to work with our mind. We are not opposed to having, various, objects of pleasure. You have your wealth and name and fame and pleasure. Everything is fine. But I should basically understand that I can be happy only when I'm with myself. When my mind is with myself, that's when I can be happy. And therefore, we should be constantly striving to make our mind inward-looking. That is the great Purushartha. Sooner we understand that in our life, sooner we will be happy. This is one education that we have to give to our children, to ourselves as well as to our children. Not really create in them any aversion for the worldly things, not at all. We don't need to create aversion in them for anything. But they should understand that happiness has to come from within, and for that the mind must become inward-looking. And that requires making the mind free from these impulses. And that requires certain values and attitudes. That requires a certain way of life. So we teach our children, our youngsters, to become contributors rather than consumers. The world believes that happiness is in consumption. More you consume, happier you are. That is a formula the whole world seems to be following. More you consume, more the merrier, more the better. And therefore consumption, the consuming society, or we are all consumers. Because somehow this thought has gone to our mind that more we consume, happier we are. More we possess, more we can consume, more we consume, happier we are. The whole world is based on or working on this philosophy. And therefore everybody is unhappy. We don't want to brand any people, and make judgment of this kind. We should not. All I can say, one cannot be happy as long as the mind is not inward looking, regardless of what all I have. The focus there should not be upon what I have. Focus should be upon what I am. Vijnana sarthiryastu. So one who has lived one's life based on this vijnana, this viveka, this viveka will give us a different set of values. If a value for making my mind inward looking, then there is value for contribution rather than consumption. By consumption I mean that I depend upon other things to make me happy. And that will make my mind extrovert. Vijnana sartheyastu. This vijnana must be there. Sorry. So this is what we call intelligent, living intelligently. Living intelligently is living based on the basic principles of life. Basic principle is that happiness is in the self. Second principle is that requires an inward-looking mind. And therefore my Purusha's effort should always be to make my mind inward-looking and to invoke the happiness from myself. Then the values will become valuable. There is a book by Puja Swamiji, The Value of Values. The introductory sentence, the value is the value if the value of the value is valuable to me. A value is the value if the value of value is valuable to me. It is called value because there is some basic value in there, like truthfulness is value. Two-minute break. So Puja Swami used to say, a value is a value when the value of the value becomes valuable to me. So truthfulness is a value. When truth becomes valuable to me, when I recognize that truthfulness, non-violence, compassion, kindness are basically valuable to me because they are the means of peace and happiness. Vijnana Sarathiriyastu. The Sarathi, the charioteer, the intellect. It is this Vijnana, this Viveka, this basic understanding all the basic principles of life. That the self is the source of happiness. And therefore a mind should be an inward-looking mind so that it can experience the self. And that requires a life which is lived in such a manner that the mind progressively becomes inward-looking, which requires that I should waste my life based on the values. And therefore, honesty, simplicity become important to me. Should become important to me. Although it's not easy to be simple, not easy to be honest, because if it is easy, everybody would be honest and simple. Unfortunately, to be honest requires me to give the benefit that comes by being dishonest. Telling a lie, the reason why I do that because it has some benefit for me. Nobody tells lies for the sake. Nobody loves dishonesty. Nobody loves untruth. Everybody loves truth and honesty. I compromise honesty out of helplessness, not out of will. Whenever I tell a lie, it's not willingly that I do, it is helplessly that I do. Because basically I love to be honest. I love to be truthful. I love to be a non-violent person. I love to be a good person. I do not love myself to be a bad person, an angry person. Even when you take a picture, a photograph, I always pose myself with a smile, whether it's inside whatever is going on, but at least for the photograph, I always pose with a smile. I don't even like a photo that is angry. Because I have love for its values. It's only of helplessness that I compromise the values. So something is more valuable. Thus, we have two kinds of values in our life. One are the natural values like truthfulness, compassion, kindness. We all love them. Others are what we call the acquired values. In course of upbringing also, we acquire other values. We acquire value for wealth. Because I find wealthy people are always respected and they always get, publicity. Thus, in course of upbringing in the society, I start developing value for wealth and name and fame and power. So, two sets of values. Value for honesty and truthfulness I am born with. But value for power and money, etc., acquired in course of my upbringing. Two sets of values, natural values and acquired values. When there is a clash conflict between them, very often that acquired value wins. This honesty, I don't know what do I get by being honest. I know certainly what I get by getting some money, that I know. I don't know what, I don't get Swamiji any recognition when I tell truth. Nobody recognizes me. But when I have some material thing, then I get recognition. So that's how these material values have become important to us. Vijnana sarthiriyastu, one who recognizes this, that the acquired values are no good, the natural values are real valuable things. I must live my life based on them. And for that I must overcome the temptations that come from satisfying the acquired values. So this is how a person has trained the mind. The intellect trains the mind. Intellect has a value. But that's not enough. Intellect must make sure that the mind follows those values. Mind is impulsive and follow its own values, then intellect at that time must control the mind, guide the mind and make it follow the values. And slowly we thus acquire a harmony between the intellect and the mind, the thinking faculty and the emotional faculty. In this example, the mind is in the place of the reins. But mind is also a live entity. These reins are not live entity, but mind is a live entity. Therefore, mind necessarily does not follow what the intellect wants it to do. Intellect can say, mind, come on, speak truth. He says, no, I won't. Mind, be kind. I will not be. So intellect may have these values, but then the mind does not necessarily follow the intellect if it has not discovered the value. So mind should discover the value. Intellect has to educate the mind and make the mind discover the value. So that is when values will become valuable. Vijnana sarthiriyastu. The sarthi, the charioteer, the intellect, has thus lived the life of Vijnana, Viveka, has lived a conscious life, who has understood the basic principles of life and who consciously lives those based on those principles, which is not always easy. Because often it requires me to control my impulses. Manah pragrahavan naraha. That's how manah, the mind, slowly and slowly becomes free from those impulses of ragadveshas. Ragadveshas are in manah, in the mind. The discrimination, viveka, is in the sarthi or in the intellect. So mere understanding of the intellect does not help. That intellect has to constantly monitor, control, educate the mind and bring an alignment between the mind, the emotional faculty, and intellect, the thinking faculty, and an alignment between the two. Otherwise, I say something and do something else. That's not unusual. What says the intellect, what does is the mind. Vijnana sarthi manah pragrahavan naraha. The sarthi, the intellect, possesses this vijnanam, this discrimination, this understanding. And the pragraham, the manaha, the mind, follows those principles. That is, the intellect is able to make the mind follow the principles. Living a conscious life. So dhanah paramapnoti tad vishnoh paramam padam. When thus the mind, intellect and the mind come in alignment, then there is a harmony within myself. There is a way to be happy. Otherwise, I have a problem with my own self. My own mind becomes my problem. I find it so difficult to be with myself, to be alone, because I have to confront that mind which I have not trained, which I have not regulated. Just to make the mind favorable to me, as Lord Krishna says, Atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu, Atmaiva ripuhu atmanaha. That mind can become my bandhu, well-wisher, friend, or it can also become my enemy. We return that mind from an enemy to become our friend, benefactor. So this is how one has to, this is what the Upaniṣad says, how we should live a conscious life, for which we should know the basic principles of life. Basic principle is that the happiness is in the self, and that happiness can be experienced only when the mind is inward looking, and mind becomes inward looking only when it is made free from these impulses which make the mind extrovert, which requires me to live a life of values, which requires a value of the values, understanding the intellect, and making sure that that understanding is put into practice. Vijnana sarviryastu manah pragrahavan naraha. So vijnanam and manah. Vijnanam is intellect here, and manah is the mind, the intellect, the thinking faculty and the emotional faculty. Both of them must be brought into alignment. Then there is what they call an integrated personality, meaning that I enjoy peace within myself. This will lead us to Tad Vishnu Paramam. This is a very important accomplishment. Because this can lead me to the attainment of the Pada or the abode of Lord Vishnu, meaning abode of the limitless. So how that happens, we'll continue our discussion in the next class also. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Next, those who wish to go to the temple, we will have the evening puja and arati.